Revealed. The inspiring journey of a poor girl who transforms her fate when her family hears her. Emma's heart raced as she huddled over her textbooks, the flickering light bulb above casting erratic shadows in the crumbling kitchen. The din of the diner had lingered on her skin, greasy smells clinging to her clothes, yet her mind couldn't stop whirlpooling with formulas and theories. She had a vision of herself in a lab coat, standing in front of complex equations, uncovering the mysteries of the universe. But as the debts piled and her younger siblings dozed in worn-out chairs, the weight of reality suffocated her aspirations. "You can't have dreams in a house like this," echoed a voice inside her, a voice that grew louder with each passing day. With her mother working tirelessly, battling exhaustion without respite, Emma felt the pressure to keep their fragile family afloat. Every hour spent at the diner chipped away at her study time, and in turn, her hope. The local kids scoffed at her ambition, identifying her not by her potential, but by the patchy clothes on her back. She clutched a crumpled note from a teacher, expressing support for her science project, feeling a fleeting spark of validation until doubt crept back in. Every success felt like a slap against the shadows of her past. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The collapsing walls of her home mirrored the crumbling fragments of her confidence. That night, with the textbooks sprawled like her hopes, she studied late into the night, her mother's faint coughing echoing ominously in the background. Just as her eyelids began to droop, a loud thud shattered the stillness. Emma rushed into the living room, her heart throbbing with panic. There lay her mother, fragile and immobile. In that moment, Emma's dreams slithered further out of reach, drowning in a new burden. The mere thought of the impending chaos, the what-ifs that hung thick in the air, paralyzed her with fear. As her mother recovered, Emma found solace in a dusty trunk, her grandfather's journal. The pages were filled with brilliant scientific musings that ignited something deep within her. Suddenly, buried dreams flickered to life. But doubt quickly followed. Could she truly make something of her grandfather's ideas? The ghosts of her classmates' mockery loomed large as she presented these thoughts in a project destined for her science fair. The risk felt enormous. The idea of unveiling her family's struggles than her triumphs weighed heavier than it should. Facing the jury, she couldn't help but question herself. Could she silence the doubts gnashing at her heels? Could she stand before everyone and unveil the raw truth of her family's life intertwined with her aspirations? As she prepared to take a step forward, anxiety coiled tight in her stomach. The crowd held its breath, darkness clinging to her heart like a vice. Would she be the one to carry this honor, or would the fragile dreams of a crumbling life prove too heavy to bear? The stillness in the air morphed into an unbearable weight as Emma stood before the jury. Their expectant eyes bore down on her, piercing through the protective veil she had woven around herself. Each tick of the clock seemed to elongate her anguish. She could almost hear the whispers of doubt echoing in her mind, each voice reminding her of the harsh realities waiting at home, ready to pull her back into the depths of despair. With trembling hands, she clutched her project board, her grandfather's words fueling her determination. Every discovery begins with questioning, he had once penned. Emma took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage to confront not only the audience, but also her own inner demons. She stepped forward, heart pounding, ready to unravel her truth. As she began, her voice trembled but held a clarity she had never felt before. I want to talk about the importance of perseverance and hope, lessons my family has taught me. With each sentence, she woven a tapestry of her life as struggles, the debts that haunted them, and the sacrifices her mother made. She spoke of late-night study sessions, of dreams snuffed out by circumstance, but too of her grandfather's journal, that ancient treasure that reminded her that knowledge could be a weapon against their plight. The jury shifted uncomfortably, their earlier skepticism beginning to crack. Emma sensed it. The collective air of the room began to shift from judgment to empathy. Fueled by this simmering energy, her words gained weight. It's easy to dismiss those who struggle as lost causes. But I stand here to say that every challenge faced can lead to discoveries, both personal and scientific, she declared, surprising even herself with the strength of her conviction. However, as she glanced upon the faces of her classmates, the shadows of doubt still lingered. What if they still saw her as just that girl in patched jeans? What if the jury couldn't reconcile her family's hardship with her ambition? Instinctively, she tightened her grip on the board, willing herself not to falter. Yet, clarity surged through her. She knew she was more than her circumstances. Her knowledge, her passion, and her potential were not defined by economic hardship. They were her weapons, her voice, her chance. With renewed energy, she explained her project, her grandfather's theories that entwined her struggles with scientific inquiry, illuminating the intersections between her life and the world beyond it. When she finished, the silence was deafening. The jury exchanged glances, their previous skepticism cleaved open by the vulnerability Emma had chosen to share. Slowly, they began to clap, a reluctant crescendo that grew louder. It wasn't just applause for her scientific merit but for the soul she had bared, transforming the moment into something larger than science alone. Emma stepped down, her heart racing not from fear but from the exhilarating thrill of self-discovery. The doubt still lingered, but now sat slightly behind her burgeoning confidence. She had spoken her truth. She had emboldened herself in the face of fear. Just as she turned away, a voice cut through the air, interrupting the applause. "What does this mean for you, Emma? Are you ready to lead?" Her throat tightened at the question, the weight of expectation hanging in the air like a dark cloud. In that moment, she understood she stood on the precipice of change, not only for herself, but potentially for others like her. The journey was fraught with uncertainty, yet an undeniable spark ignited inside her. With a steadied resolve, she faced the future. The moment had come. Her true battle was just beginning. Was she prepared to forsake her doubts entirely for the mantle of leadership? Would she rise to the challenge, or cling to the safety of familiarity? As she stepped off the stage, the thrill of possibility rushed through her veins, drawing her onward. Emma walked down the dimly lit hallway, still riding the waves of adrenaline from her presentation. Each step was heavier than the last as a mixture of elation and trepidation churned within her. The applause still echoed in her ears, a haunting reminder of both achievement and the gulf that lay ahead. Questions swirled in her mind. What would it mean to lead? Could she truly rise from the shadows of her past? As she stepped outside, the crisp air filled her lungs, grounding her in reality. She looked out over the school's familiar grounds, the place where she had forged her identity amid the struggle. It had always been a battleground for her, one marked by quiet determination and fierce ambition. But now, as she gazed into the horizon, the world felt larger, filled with potential. With each breath, she relished the possibility of change. However, the specter of doubt crept back in. She approached her old friend Thomas, who waited near the student parking lot. "Hey, Emma," he said, an uncertain smile playing on his lips. "Great job in there. I really didn't expect you to be so powerful." "Thanks, Thomas," she replied, her voice wavering. Instead of joy, she felt a pang of guilt. "I just spoke from the heart." "Yeah, but I mean it. You could make things happen, you know?" His eyes gleamed with something she hadn't seen before. Respect, perhaps. The kind of respect she had craved, but never thought she'd earn. Emma was startled by the realization that she was standing on the brink of an identity shift. She had gone from just another student to a voice of inspiration. "But what if I can't?" she confessed, surprise flooding her own words. "What if I'm not cut out for all this?"
"Who decides that?"
Thomas challenged, his certainty galvanized by the weight of her vulnerability. She recoiled, a storm of uncertainties racking her mind. This journey was more than just sharing a project. It was about the burden of leadership, the challenge of being really seen. It required her to confront not just the world but herself, to abstract her reality into a narrative others would follow. Maybe, she pondered aloud, maybe I can ask the questions and lead, but if I stumble? Then you learn. Isn't that what you said in there? He pointed back, toward the building. Every challenge leads to a discovery, right? It was the first time someone had turned her own words back on her, circling in on her doubt like a predator. The tension that encased her chest began to fracture, a flicker of determination igniting against the lingering shadows. I need to find out who I am beyond this, she admitted, her resolve hardening. If I'm going to lead, I must believe I have the right to do so. The realization sent a rush of heat through her, burnt even more intense by her own fear. Thomas nodded, seeming to understand, and in his gaze, Emma saw an ally instead of a critic. For the first time, she felt, in a very real way, the weight of expectation didn't have to crush her, it could forge her instead. Let us start something then, she decided, her thoughts racing with possibilities. A study group, maybe? I could share what I know. We can tackle projects together. As the words slipped from her lips, she felt a burgeoning excitement. They stood at the edge of a new chapter, one she would not navigate alone. Emma sensed this collective energy was crucial as she prepared to wield her new voice. But beneath the spark of optimism loomed another truth. Would her classmates rise to the challenge? And would they accept her as their leader? The sun dipped low in the sky, and shadows lengthened, mirroring the uncertainty ahead. Emma stood tall, heart racing, conscious that the path forward would demand everything she had. For the first time, she sensed the stakes were raised beyond her personal struggle. She was on the verge of confronting not only her own fears, but could her classmates truly unite behind her vision? The balance hung in the air, waiting to tip. Emma took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to forge her new identity, unaware of the impending confrontation about to unfold as she tried to rally her classmates to her cause. Would they be willing to follow her? Emma stood at the edge of the parking lot, the warmth of the sun fading, leaving a cool evening breeze to wrap around her like an unwelcome blanket. She had set the stage, spoken her truth, and now she felt the crushing weight of anticipation. Would her classmates respond to her call? Her heart raced as she paced alongside the familiar rows of cars, memories of past anxieties threatening to bubble to the surface. Each vehicle seemed to hold echoes of moments spent doubting herself, paralyzed by fear. But today was different. Today, she had spoken with clarity and purpose. The question was whether that clarity could extend beyond her own mind and convince others to join her. Hey, Emma, wait up. A voice broke through her thoughts, and she turned to see Sarah, a bright student known for her leadership in the environmental club, striding toward her. Her expression was a mixture of admiration and curiosity. Did you really mean it? Sarah asked, her tone both serious and intrigued. About forming a study group? Emma nodded, her resolve flickering with excitement, yet balanced by uncertainty. Yes, I think it could make a difference. We can collaborate, share our strengths, and tackle projects together. Sarah raised an eyebrow, her skepticism palpable. I get what you're saying, but you know how things usually go. Group projects tend to fall apart. What makes you think we can actually make this work? The question struck at the heart of Emma's self-doubt. She had envisioned a thriving study circle, but what if it devolved into chaos? I know we can do it if we all commit. I want us to have a space where ideas can flourish, where everyone can contribute. But, she hesitated, I need to know if you believe in me too. Belief isn't a switch we just flip, Sarah said thoughtfully, crossing her arms. It comes from how we've seen each other act in the past. It hasn't been easy for you, and some of us only recognize strength in traditional ways. Emma's chest tightened, the truth resonating like a painful bell tolling in her mind. Traditional leadership? Would she have to conform to expectations to be taken seriously? What if I don't fit that mold? She questioned, her own vulnerability now laid bare. That's where your uniqueness lies, Emma. You can inspire others because you're different. You're relatable. Just don't let the fear of failure stop you. Show them that it's okay to stumble. Sarah's words sparked something in Emma, reigniting the flicker of confidence she'd felt after the presentation. But could she truly embody this new identity? Emma took a deep breath and straightened her back, feeling the weight of her past not as a bondage, but as a foundation. "What if I asked you to help lead this study group with me?" she ventured, testing the waters. "I know you have experience managing groups. I could really use your guidance." Surprise flashed across Sarah's face, quickly replaced with contemplation. "That could be interesting. You may just be onto something. But realize this, we'll both have to step outside our comfort zones, and not everyone will support us." Emma felt the gravity of that statement sink in. The prospect of failed initiatives loomed ominously. "I'm ready. If it means becoming a better leader and helping others push past their boundaries, I'll face whatever comes." For a moment, both girls stood in silence, the unease of the unknown looming in the backdrop. Emma found herself questioning again. Was she truly prepared for the challenges ahead, both personally and collectively? "Let us give it a go," Sarah finally said, a faint smile breaking through her initial hesitance. As darkness fell, they walked back towards the school together, preparing to share the plan with others. Little did Emma know, the first seeds of resistance were already germinating in the minds of those who had yet to be convinced of her worth. Emma paused, her heart pounding as she turned to Sarah. "Do you think anyone will really follow us?" The question hung heavily, leaving an ominous silence in its wake, as both girls prepared to confront the impending reality, whether they could truly rally their peers behind a vision that might redefine their high school experiences forever. Emma entered the empty classroom with a hesitant step, the wooden desk polished to a sheen reflecting more than just her nervous face. This was the space where she envisioned the study group coming to life, where connections would flourish and ideas would unite. Yet, the reality of initiating change pressed heavily on her, a weight she hadn't quite anticipated. She set down her bag and leaned against the desk, staring out the window while summoning courage. The twilight sky painted the room in hues of blue and gold, an unsettling contrast to the anxiety churning inside her. Sarah was right. She would need to step outside her comfort zone, and recruiting others was only the beginning. "Get a grip, Emma," she whispered, her voice barely audible as she practiced how to project confidence. In the reflection of the glass, she saw the girl she wanted to be, unafraid and assertive. But the image was still marred by shadows of insecurity. What if she failed? What if no one showed up? Just then, the door creaked open, and Sarah walked in, her presence bringing a breath of fresh air. "So, ready to face the crowd?" Emma nodded, but felt her stomach twist. "What if they don't take me seriously?" Sarah, already setting up a few chairs, turned with resolve. "Then we show them how serious we are. Your passion is your strength, Emma. Let them feel it." As the minutes ticked by, other students trickled in, some familiar, others distant figures from the background of her high school life. Each face was a flicker of anxiety that swept over her until she felt the familiar pang of self-doubt clawing at her throat. "Hey, everyone!" Emma called out, her voice shaking initially but gaining steadiness as she continued. "I'm really glad you all came. I wanted to create a space where we can learn from each other, where we can push each other to be our very best." Murmurs filled the room. Some expressions showed interest, while others wore skepticism. Emma's confidence teetered at the sight of dismissal. "What makes you think this will be different from any other group projects?" A voice called out from the back, inciting a ripple of agreement among a few. In that moment, the mask of her facade began to crack. She was unprepared for resistance, and her heart raced as her thoughts spiraled. "What if I can't convince them?" But amid that spiraling anxiety, a new thought emerged. "Think, Emma. What gives you the right to lead?" "Because I believe in the power of collaboration," she found herself responding, her voice a notch louder. "I struggled to find my place, and I know many of you have as well. We must be able to stumble and still find strength together. Failure doesn't define us, it's the learning and the effort that do." A quiet settled over the room as her sincerity captured their attention. She could sense some minds beginning to shift. Yet, doubt was still palpable. Some students remained unconvinced, whispering among themselves, fueling Emma's anxiety. Let us have a discussion. If you believe this can work, great. If not, tell us why, Sarah chimed in, attempting to keep the momentum. Emma felt gratitude for Sarah's presence. They needed each other to navigate this uncertain terrain. Yeah, I do love your input. What are we afraid of? Let us talk it through. The hesitant conversation turned into a deeper exploration of individual fears and perceptions. Some admitted they were tired of the competitive nature of their classes, while others voiced experiences of feeling overshadowed and unheard. As they engaged, Emma noticed herself beginning to feel less like an imposter. She was here interacting, facilitating a space where vulnerability could thrive. Their voices began to harmonize, and she felt a flicker of hope illuminating the tension hanging in the air. A few students even proposed strategies on how they could operate effectively as a group. Judging by the sparks of passion in their words, a glimmer of excitement swelled in Emma. Yet, a final comment from a particularly cynical peer cut through the positive atmosphere. Sounds good in theory, but how long before you all give up? Those words seemed to hang like a storm cloud over her burgeoning confidence. Emma's heart thundered in her chest, a stark reminder that even small movements could be met with harsh realities. She took a deep breath, needing to confront this naysayer. You're right. Sustaining the group will be challenging. But if we fail, we'll learn from it and try again. My question is, are you willing to join us in that process? The answer was uncertain. With the stakes heightened and doubts lurking, Emma braced herself for a potential confrontation, recognizing she was standing at the precipice of not only her leadership journey, but also her own self-acceptance. As she locked eyes with the doubting student, she couldn't help but wonder, was this not only a test of her capabilities, but of her very worth as a leader? The silence thickened as everyone awaited a response, the tension ready to crack the delicate equilibrium they'd built. Emma could feel a pivotal moment was within reach, one that could either solidify her role or dismantle it altogether. How could she transform doubt into a foundation for growth? Emma's voice trembled as she navigated through the dense silence. She couldn't tell if the weight of the moment was pressing down on everyone, or if it was just her. Was it foolish to hope her response had been strong enough? Time seemed to stretch infinitely. She could feel her heart hammering against her ribcage, an unrelenting drumbeat of vulnerability. The skeptical student met her gaze, his expression inscrutable. Emma felt a flicker of courage blaze within her, but it was quickly swallowed by the remnants of doubt. What if he's right, she thought. What if this all dissolves like every other effort? She took a step forward, determined to stand her ground. Look, I understand skepticism. It's easier to dismiss new ideas than to invest in them. It's hard work to be part of something that might not succeed. But think of how much we can learn by trying and failing together. It's scary, but it's also immensely rewarding. Isn't that worth something? There was a rustle of quiet responses, some nodding in subtle agreement, while others appeared deep in thought. She could have easily caved. The adrenaline was surging through her, urging her to retreat into the safety of silence. Instead, she remembered Sarah's words about passion. I believe in the kind of group where we can challenge the things we've been taught, engage in real discussions, and perhaps make a few mistakes along the way, she continued, her voice steadying, warmth weaving through her nerves. Each word reaffirmed her presence in the room. The point isn't perfection. It's finding our voices and helping others find theirs too. This is a chance for us to grow together. A whisper of engagement began to ripple through the crowd. While some still wore apprehensive expressions, others leaned closer, intrigued. The pivot was subtle but unmistakable. They were listening. Sarah took a step into the open space. Exactly. Her enthusiasm boosted Emma's confidence. Emma leads from a place of care and passion. This isn't just about making good grades or beating a deadline. It's shared experiences, learning, and preparing ourselves for what's next. And if we're honest with ourselves, who doesn't want to be encouraged to discover their potential? With their voices scaling the air, Emma felt a tremor of solidarity. The probing questions continued to emerge, but now they were framed more constructively. What challenges do you foresee? How do we handle disputes? What if someone doesn't pull their weight? The questions, initially filled with doubt, began to blend into honest dialogues. Emma felt lighter with each exchange, her mind racing with solutions and strategies. Their fears started to map out a common terrain, and she could see their barriers slowly unbinding, revealing authentic connections. When the questions subsided, a girl from the back spoke up, "If we're trying to build something together, I'll help. I'm tired of feeling like I'm on my own." Her sincerity pierced through the room, sparking murmurs of agreement once more. For the first time, Emma truly felt like a leader rather than an imposter. She no longer just echoed her insecurities. Instead, she was channeling their collective fears into something tangible. Yet, the consistency of that hope hung precariously in the air. Would this newfound camaraderie withstand the friction of reality? As the conversation began to drift into more practical terms, meeting times, and collaborative strategies, Emma allowed herself a moment of reflection. She was stepping further from the shadows of self-doubt into a space where she felt empowered. Challenging the very cynicism that had threatened to overwhelm her was a victory worth celebrating. Yet the lingering presence of doubt remained. The critical student had become quiet, seemingly pondering her words, and she sensed that discomfort creeping back into her thoughts. Could she really sustain this dynamic? And what if the challenges ahead were greater than anything they had discussed? In that moment of silent introspection, she glanced toward her newfound group and wondered what the next steps would actually entail. Could they forge a true path forward? Emma realized that the essence of this journey wasn't about being the perfect leader, but about embracing every flaw, every challenge, as part of their collective story. As the discussions turned lively with excitement, Emma felt an undeniable shift within herself. She was no longer merely a participant. She was an architect of possibilities. But as laughter echoed and plans solidified, her gaze wandered to that one skeptical face once more. "This is just the beginning," she thought, a knot of anxious curiosity tightening in her stomach. "But is the weight of leadership truly something I can bear?" Aiming to smooth out the remaining threads of uncertainty, Emma prepared herself for the unknown that lay just ahead, aware that every decision made could either be a stepping stone or a stumbling block along the path of her growth. The following week brought a fresh layer of complexity to Emma's aspirations. The discussions had laid the groundwork for collaboration, but now, those optimistic chords vibrated with the tension of untested ideas. Emma stood at the threshold of transformation, aware that theory and practice often diverged in unpredictable ways. As she stepped into the classroom, the waning sunlight streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the desks. The atmosphere was charged, a mix of excitement and apprehension permeating the air. She took a deep breath, recalling the warmth of support she had felt during their last meeting. Yet, an uninvited thought crept in: could she truly maintain this momentum? The critical student, Alex, sat in the back, arms folded and gaze heavy. He had been the strongest voice of dissent, and Emma sensed that his silence carried layers of scrutiny. With a resolve tethered to her earlier commitment to challenge doubts, she addressed the class. "Let us review our plans. I need your input. What do you think works, and what doesn't?" The responses varied, some laced with enthusiasm while others resonated with skepticism. Emma listened intently, taking note as hands shot up, each comment feeding into her evolving understanding of her peers. They spoke of logistics, expectations, and how to navigate emerging conflicts. Each suggestion added to a growing tapestry of ideas. However, it also amplified the self-imposed pressure she felt. With every contribution, Emma's mind raced. How could she manage differing opinions without losing her way? Unconsciously, she glanced toward Alex. The pressure built like a dense fog, but uncertainty transformed into clarity when he finally spoke. "I think we need to define roles better," he said, his tone balanced between challenge and suggestion. "If we're going to do this, everyone needs to know their responsibility. Otherwise, it's just chaos." His words struck a chord. While a part of her bristled at his straightforwardness, another part recognized the necessity of his point. "You're right, Alex. Let us outline specific tasks," she replied, attempting to mask the tremor in her voice. As she wrote, the act of defining roles invigorated her purpose. Each responsibility assigned felt like a stepping stone into newfound authority. However, as she engaged deeper, she felt the growing weight of her decisions. What if she misjudged someone's capabilities? What if the task distribution triggered resentment? The lingering question echoed in her mind. Could she handle the implications of her leadership? "Emma," Sarah interjected, breaking her internal spiral. "I think you're doing great at fostering discussion, but don't forget it's also about courage. Making tough choices is part of leadership, and it's okay to stumble." Emma nodded, grappling with the dichotomy of her burgeoning role. The idea of vulnerability lingered. Could it coexist with authority? A cacophony of internal doubt buzzed like static. As the class continued, one student expressed a concern about an unresolved tension from last week. An unresolved conflict from nature discussions had created a rift, exposing fractures in the group dynamics. Emma could see the concern in the eyes of her classmates. They were counting on her ability to mediate, to create harmony amid discord. Faced with this new dilemma, I could feel an almost physical weight bearing down on her shoulders. How does one lead without losing the essence of community? Confronting the challenge head-on, Emma took a breath, stealing her thoughts. Let us talk it through. What happened, and how can we resolve this? Her proposition ignited a dialogue, and as voices clashed and harmonized, the session shifted from tension to collaboration. Emma found herself facilitating a negotiation not through commands, but through empowerment. With each student engaged and invested, she could feel her confidence swell, intertwining threads of vulnerability with genuine strength. Yet, as the group discussion wrapped up, the remnants of unresolved tensions remained. The echo of Alex's critique sparked a flicker of unease in Emma. If her leadership teetered on the fulcrum of confidence and uncertainty, where did that leave her if the tides turned against her? As the session concluded, Emma gathered her notes, feeling the adrenaline fade, but the weight reemerge. The path ahead was increasingly murky with implications of her choices, beckoning the question, what if she was wrong about how to lead them, about her capacity to hold this vision together? With her heart thudding, Emma faced the threshold of uncertainty once more. The reflection of responsibility stared back at her through the glass of the classroom door, urging her onward, while an unspoken answer loomed ominous amidst the promise of the unknown. What awaited her on this journey might redefine not just their collective experience, but her very self. As she stepped outside, Emma's resolve steeled. The time had come to confront not just the doubts of others, but the very doubt within herself. Could she truly emerge as the leader they needed? The following days blurred together, marked by an intensity that gnawed at Emma's resolve. Each morning, she fluttered into the classroom with a forced enthusiasm, a mask over her rising uncertainty. Though the students engaged and ideas flowed freely, she remained hyper-aware of the ever-ticking clock and the looming expectations tethered to her leadership. The pressure coiled tightly around her, a physical reminder of the stakes involved. In the sanctuary of her mind, doubts clamored for attention. What if the students lost faith in her direction? She channeled her apprehension into careful planning, meticulously drafting agendas and outlines. Yet, every plan felt hollow when she turned her gaze upon their faces. She recognized their potential, but alongside it danced the shadows of her own inadequacies. Alex's critique lingered, a persistent echo warning her of the consequences of missteps. One afternoon, as she sat on the edge of her desk contemplating how best to nurture collaboration without micromanaging, she realized she had to confront the reality of her anguish. She paced the empty room, breathing in tandem with the silence around her. The hunched position she often found herself in mirrored her internal struggles. Each step was infused with an intention to restore her confidence, but the nagging thought persisted. Could she silence the pervasive doubts gnawing at her? That night, Emma sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by remnants of dinner and scattered notes. After reviewing the upcoming discussions she planned to address, she found herself writing a list, not of tasks, but of personal affirmations. Beneath each, She jotted down one small achievement from the day, a student who smiled because she listened, a hesitant idea that turned into a discussion thriving with energy. The small victories began to accumulate, and for the first time in days, doubt transformed into realization. Insight demands courage, she whispered to herself, reminding herself of Sarah's earlier advice. The phrase echoed with weight, a seed rooting in her psyche. She recognized that the path of leadership would require raw honesty, not just with her students, but also with herself. Embracing her vulnerability might unlock a more profound connection with them. However, this revelation ignited another flame of anxiety. If she embraced vulnerability, would the students still see her as a leader? Could she lead without relinquishing authority? The dichotomy pressed heavily on her mind as she reflected on her day. Determined to break away from the chains of fear, she decided to reveal her doubts to her class in their next gathering. The following session came swiftly, and the atmosphere hummed with energy as students settled into their places. Emma felt a pulse of adrenaline, a surge of anticipation, and fear intertwining. As she settled into her role, her heart raced, but steadfastly she began. "I want to start by being honest with you all," she said, her voice steady yet vulnerable. "Leading this group has brought me joy, but it has also brought significant doubt, and I think it's important that you all know that." Gasps filled the room, and she saw curiosity spark in the eyes of her classmates. Silence hung for a beat before she continued. "I'm learning just like all of you, and I need your help to navigate this together. What are you feeling about our direction?" The dialogue that erupted offered an unexpected wave of relief. Students chimed in genuinely, sharing their struggles, ideas, and unease with the same weight of honesty she had just demonstrated. With each self-disclosed fear, Emma felt a profound shift. She wasn't alone in her uncertainty. Her peers shared the struggle of expectation. Realizing they were all in flux deepened the trust within the room. As she facilitated their dialogue, she saw how collaboration birthed strength rather than chaos. Yet, beneath the exhilaration lies a tension that wouldn't dissipate. What if this well of vulnerability led her deeper into uncharted waters? As students engaged with newfound energy, Emma couldn't shake the realization that there were still tensions unresolved, perspectives overlooked. The fear that her decision to expose her vulnerability might backfire loomed like a shadow. As classroom discussions thrived and interwoven narratives flourished, that question remained vibrating beneath the surface. Navigating the tides of honesty and leadership sent a thrill down her spine. Emma's heart raced, torn between the current success and the unknown future awaiting her next move. Was the bond forged strong enough to withstand challenges that lay ahead, or had she merely unveiled a portal to deeper insecurities? Emerging as the leader they needed could threaten the very foundation she had begun to build. With steadfast determination, she acknowledged that the journey was far from over. A phalanx of challenges awaited, each one offering the opportunity for further growth and insight. Emma took a breath, looking forward as the students debated, their energy propelling her now. What lay beyond this revelation was a question not just of her leadership, but of her very identity. Who would she become as the tides shifted once more? Only time would tell. The following week unfolded as an intricate tapestry of reflection and interaction. In Emma's classroom, the energy that once felt foreign now resonated with an electrifying familiarity. The students' laughter carried a sense of shared purpose, but beneath Emma's outward composure, her internal storm brewed stronger than ever. She felt both emboldened and unsure, as though she danced on the precipice between growth and regression. Emma dove into the next few sessions with renewed vigor, but an unshakable tension clung to her shoulders. She routinely prompted discussions centering around vulnerability and leadership, inviting students to share frustrations and triumphs. Their responses taught her about the significance of transparency and collaboration. Still, as engaging as it was, her mind raced, questioning if she could maintain this candor without undermining her authority. Amid a particularly vibrant discussion, Emma noticed Sarah weaving her way through a poignant concern. "How do we know if we're really being heard?" Sarah asked, her eyes searching the room for consensus. The emphasis on feeling diminished echoed loudly in Emma's thoughts. Wasn't that what she had been wrestling with? That's a great question, Sarah, Emma replied, her voice measured. It's important that we create an environment where everyone's voice matters. Perhaps we need a system, something to ensure all ideas are considered? The air seemed to thrum with possibility. They brainstormed a method for anonymous submissions, where ideas could flow freely, without judgment. Emma facilitated this discussion with a burgeoning sense of pride and clarity. Each contribution from her classmates spurred more creativity. That flickering doubt from earlier days seemed to fade, replaced by hope. Yet, she remained acutely aware this sense of momentum was newfound and fragile. After class, with the enthusiasm of students ringing in her ears, Emma found herself walking home, the autumn sun dipping below the horizon. The vibrant colors mirrored her internal chaos. Each step felt heavy, and as she passed familiar storefronts, doubt nagged at her once more. Would these changes truly empower her students? Would this collaborative spirit endure, or was she merely postponing the inevitable confrontation with her fears? Later that evening, in the quiet isolation of her apartment, she confronted the day's experiences. Before her lay ungraded assignments and unanswered emails, but they paled in comparison to the weight of her thoughts. Echoes of student voices rang in her head, the mixture of excitement and uncertainty. What if they found out I'm just winging it? The question reverberated through the quiet, demanding an answer she struggled to provide. With a determined breath, she pulled out her personal affirmation list, a practice that had borne unexpected clarity. But this time she wanted more than to reflect. She wanted to curate something substantive, to channel her experience into a learning tool for her students. She envisioned a workshop, a session dedicated to vulnerability, experimental leadership, and authentic conversation, where her students could navigate their fears as she had begun to. The thrill of creation invigorated her shaky confidence, and she spent hours structuring the workshop. Yet an insidious anxiety coiled within her as she prepared. The notion of presenting herself as an imperfect leader, an instructor who didn't have all the answers, sent shivers coursing down her spine. What if the workshop drew out deeper vulnerabilities than she was prepared to handle? Emma stood at a crossroads. The shift towards a more transparent leadership style had begun to feel like a double-edged sword, one that brought her students closer, while threatening to expose her flaws. It was one thing to brandish vulnerability as a tool for engagement. It was another entirely to bear the raw reality of her own uncertainties in front of a group of eager, yet impressionable minds. Could she carry the weight of her own authenticity? The pressing question gnawed at her. As she finalized plans for the workshop, her hands shook with anticipation. She was on the brink of something transformative, but could she really navigate this new territory of vulnerability together with her students, or would it spiral into chaos? The morning of the workshop arrived, the students filing in with anticipation. Emma's heart raced. This was her moment, but was she truly ready for what lay ahead? This time, the stakes felt higher than ever, and within that uncertainty lingered the promise of revelation. Would she be able to lead this new level of engagement? And as she faced them, poised like an arrow ready to fly, the question loomed in her mind. Was she prepared to confront what might unfurl from the raw honesty she was about to share? As Emma stood before her classmates, the dimly lit room thrummed with a blend of nervous curiosity and apprehension. The workshop lay ahead like a vast, uncharted territory filled with possibilities and fears. She felt exposed, not just as a leader, but as a person navigating the complexities of her own insecurities. Taking a calculated breath, she resolved to anchor herself, not in perfection but in authenticity. Welcome, everyone. Today is not about me teaching you something you don't know. It's about all of us sharing our experiences, she began, her voice steady but tinged with warmth. I want us to create a space where we can feel safe to explore vulnerability and what it means to navigate leadership together. Emma watched the faces of her classmates shift from skepticism to intrigue. She could sense the collective energy. The room was already beginning to crack open, allowing light to trickle in. She shared her struggles in balancing expectations and limitations, revealing the doubts that had plagued her since their initial meetings. Speaking openly about the weight of responsibility galvanized the atmosphere, transforming it from an ordinary classroom to a sanctuary of shared exploration. The discussion blossomed unexpectedly. Students shared stories of their own struggles, of times when expectations suffocated their authenticity, revealing that the desire for connection trumped the need for perfection. With each story, Emma felt her sense of purpose solidify. They were embarking on this journey together. Each of our experiences contributes to our growth, Emma encouraged, her emotions surpassing the surface. The importance isn't in how smoothly we can lead, but how we can embrace the lessons learned from the rough patches. As they delved deeper into the conversation, Emma witnessed an undeniable solidarity emerge. Laughter interspersed with tears, layers of hesitance peeled away like bark from a tree, revealing raw, unfiltered humanity. Connections flourished. Students who once hesitated to speak began to identify themselves in one another's narratives, each story reinforcing the essential truth. They were not alone. Despite the warmth enveloping the room, a flicker of fear lingered in Emma's chest. What if vulnerability exposed weaknesses too profound to bear? But as she guided the dialogue, she realized that each moment spent inviting their authenticity into the light was a personal victory not just for them but for her. Each thread of vulnerability she shared deepened the collective trust, reshaping her identity, allowing her to step fully into her role as a leader. The workshop concluded with overwhelming support echoing in the room, a crescendo of encouragement that reverberated through her heart. They had engaged meaningfully, transforming an abstract concept into a tangible experience. Emma savored the sweet taste of accomplishment that accompanied their openness. This was leadership anchored in empathy, honesty, and shared growth. In the days that followed, Emma felt a reinvigorated sense of confidence as they strived to apply the lessons learned from the workshop in real-world projects. Her classmates leaned into each other, challenging ideas, embracing experimentation, and sincere vulnerability flourished in their group. No longer mere acquaintances, they were comrades, forging a newfound connection around their aspirations and their challenges. This evolution imbued Emma's self-belief with newfound strength. She was no longer the girl struggling with doubts. She was a leader recognized for her authenticity, one whose commitment to openness had inspired her peers to embrace their own imperfections. She had conquered the negativity festering in her mind and replaced it with a feeling of belonging and accomplishment. As Emma strode down the polished school hallways, past the echoes of shared laughter ensconcing her heart, she realized her journey had transformed not just her perception, but that of her classmates as well. Together, they had built something meaningful, navigating the unfamiliar path of self-discovery, empowering one another to chase dreams despite the shadows of doubt they had once harbored. With courage galvanizing her steps, Emma entered the next chapter armed with wisdom born from discomfort, anchored in the knowledge that true leadership stems not from authority, but from the ability to foster growth through vulnerability and connection. The new school year promised further challenges, yet for the first time, Emma felt ready. The fear of failure had been supplanted by a fierce determination not only to lead, but to thrive collectively. Emerging from the crucible of her past, Emma stood tall, her identity as a leader solidified through the lessons learned and the voices heard. She had transformed, not merely in title but in substance. The girl who once doubted herself had now achieved tangible success, celebrated not for her singularity, but for the strength she had forged alongside her classmates. In this moment of self-realization, Emma gazed to the horizon, knowing that her journey was only beginning, filled with limitless potential waiting to be explored. If you resonated with Emma's journey of relentless growth and transformation, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and join our community of dreamers and doers. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us spread inspiring stories like Emma's. Comment below with your thoughts on the ending and share any transformative moments in your life. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is vital in bringing these empowering stories to the forefront.